Welcome to Sharika Talks, Unraveling the Truth, a journalist's quest. Subscribe for the truth.
Chapter 26, The Void. Adam's Jeep burst forward, missing Sharika by millimeters. In that heart-stopping moment, she felt the cold certainty of her own death. But she didn't see what Adam was really doing. Riaz did, and he wasn't sure Adam would succeed. Popular fiction depicts lions as the king of the jungle, but lions don't even live in the jungle. They live on the savannah. The true apex predator of the jungle is the tiger. And though the Siberian tiger is the largest and strongest, the Bengal tiger, found in India, Nepal, and beyond, is deadlier. Agile, cunning, and competing against other predators for larger prey, it reigns supreme. A fully grown tiger can kill an elephant with a single blow, and unlike most cats, it is an excellent swimmer. They rarely attack humans, but when old age dulls their hunting skills, they sometimes turn to manhunting. For a tiger, that is easier than chasing a rat. Most humans freeze the moment they realize they've been marked. This old tiger had found a small, skinny prey looking at the sky near the riverbank as he swam through it. It was an easy meal. As he stalked through the shadows, his movements were as silent as a feather falling to the ground. Every step was cautious and calculated. He always made sure at least 3 of his paws were planted, so that if the moment of surprise was lost, he could still leap from that spot. As he drew close enough, he began calculating. Since the prey hadn't noticed him yet, he could play it safe. When he had reached this close, he had always enjoyed more than a 90% success rate. Although he didn't know the laws of physics or biomechanics, his sheer experience allowed him to make complex calculations in his subconscious with greater accuracy than any supercomputer on the planet. Then came the final part, execution. Although he didn't know Newton's laws, he knew that in order to leap, he had to brace his muscles, keep his body low to the ground to lower his center of gravity, and then exert force on the earth to launch forward with maximum acceleration without losing precision. But just before the leap, a pair of blinding lights and a roaring engine rushed toward him. The tiger's aged reaction time, already slowed to 200 milliseconds, left him frozen, unable to decide before impact. In his prime, he might have dodged the lights, made the leap, and tasted victory. Instead, the Jeep slammed into his flank, throwing him sideways into the dark waters of the river. Adam slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding to a stop in half a foot of water. His chest heaved, knuckles white against the steering wheel. He'd had a backup plan, but this reckless move had been his best shot. The tiger, struck with the full force of the Jeep, wasn't dead. Adam saw it swimming away in the river. Sharika was stunned. A wave of nausea washed over her, and she felt her legs give way. "You are not weak," she told herself fiercely. Just as she had in a near-death experience 2 years ago, she closed her eyes and took 2 deep, shuddering breaths. Adam was beside her now, having parked the Jeep safely on the shore. Riaz followed, looking more shaken to the core than Sharika herself. He was beginning to get a small grasp of what fatherly affection really meant. "Are you really okay?" he asked, trembling. "Yeah, I'm okay," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. She turned to Adam, who had returned to his normal cheerful self. "Thank you. I've never thought anyone could do something like that with a Jeep." "Let's get to town quickly," Riaz insisted, his eyes still scanning the dark jungle. "No more stops here." As they started moving again, Adam began talking about the wild animals that infested the area around his home. "I have electric fencing all around," he said, "and when there's no electricity, we keep a fire burning all night. I've seen a tiger near my perimeter twice, and leopards more than 10 times." Riaz leaned in, listening intently, but Sharika's mind was elsewhere. Part of her was thinking about Adam's family and their precarious life on the edge of the wild. Another part was replaying her third near-death experience. And that thought led, as it always did, back to Sachin. Back to the moment he had saved her 2 years ago, and the initial devotion she had felt for her savior, a feeling that had changed into an influence that now shaped her entire life. Although it's the first time I'm hitting a tiger, Adam chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. I'm sure if I had upgraded my Willys to a modern Jeep like a Jimny, we would all be camping in that tiger's stomach on the riverbank. Riaz remained silent, but Sharika, realizing his intent, asked, "Why?" Adam exclaimed. "Because all modern vehicles come with paper-thin bodies and crumple zones and all that safety crap. If I had hit even a stray dog with one of those, its engine would have come out. But this boy," he said, patting the dashboard affectionately, "this good old Willys could hit an elephant and it wouldn't even get a scratch." They reached Tulsipur by 9:30 p.m. After checking into the hotel, Riaz and Adam opened a bottle of aged Marfa, Nepal's traditional apple brandy. It was only after the first drink that Riaz calmed down and returned to his normal manner. Sharika, not so fond of hard liquor, bought a bottle of Nepali wine from the hotel to calm her nerves. Later, as she climbed into the bed in her room, the adrenaline finally began to fade, leaving an exhausted ache in its place. After taking a deep breath, her mind still replaying the incident by the river and the memory of 2 years ago, she opened her Samsung phone. She pulled up the tracker app, but she was stunned. The tracker's battery had been running low for 2 months, and that morning it had finally died. A hollow emptiness spread through her like a void. She could no longer track Sachin. The last ping showed him moving from the Deep Enterprises facility to Jaisalmer Airport. Then, as his location shifted down the runway, the signal vanished. Shit, where was he going? She muttered to herself. She set the phone aside and tried to surrender to sleep, letting the wine dull the void. But she had no idea that what awaited her in the coming days was far beyond anything she could imagine. The Bombardier Global 8000 private jet ascended sharply from the runway of Jaisalmer Airport. Though Jaisalmer was officially a domestic hub, private jets like this could cross borders without pause. And this was no ordinary aircraft. It was the longest-range business jet in the world, capable of linking almost any two cities nonstop. At 0.94 Mach, more than 100 kilometers per hour, it could chase the edge of night itself. Inside, the cabin was a cocoon of cream leather and soft golden light. The muted hum of the engines was almost hypnotic. Sachin leaned back, the warmth of a glass of Bacardi settling into his veins. The past months had been restless. Ever since his return from Tibet, he had been in a constant state of emergency. This even meant skipping the vacation he always had with his father every year, a tradition they had kept without a break for more than a decade, ever since they parted on that day. Sachin knew that with his current position, he could easily bail out his father and grant him freedom, but his father wouldn't agree. After all, he was in that paradise of tranquility. No wonder he didn't want to leave. Sachin smiled at the thought. He had already promised himself that when this was over, he would spend 2 uninterrupted months there with his father, and he wished, desperately, that it would all be over soon. These past months had been grueling. He hadn't visited the kids. Not one day had been free from work. No proper rest, no steady sleep, no regular meals. He finished the second glass and reclined his seat. Slowly, he began to drift toward a much-needed sleep. He had to make up for the rest he'd lost while traveling. The task ahead was monumental. As he entered the narrow space between wakefulness and light sleep, images of a battlefield bombarded his subconscious as fleeting dreamlets. Then, a single thought struck him with the force of a physical blow, jolting him fully awake. Could it be? He asked himself. It would perfectly explain everything. The new revelation connected all the secret guardians, converging on one simple explanation that had been hidden in plain sight, yet seen by no one. It also meant more work for him and the Sixers. He immediately rechecked the overlooked fact against all the data he had collected. He was stunned. He made a call to Aparna using the flight's onboard Wi-Fi. He might need to summon one of the Sixers to his destination. As the call was connecting, he thought about the astronomical price tag of their next move and Sukanya's inevitable outrage when she heard about it. He didn't know if what he was doing was right, but he did know that if any of the other powers searching for this thing found it without grasping what it truly was, it might very well be the end of the world as they knew it. End of chapter 26.
Thank you for watching Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest. Subscribe to stay updated on Sharika's journey. Stay tuned for the next part.
Disclaimer. Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest is a work of fiction. The experiences, ideas, and theories presented by the characters, including the books they write, are purely fictional and do not reflect real-world events, beliefs, or ideologies. While some incidents and characters may be inspired by real-world scenarios, they are entirely fictionalized for storytelling purposes. The author does not endorse or share the viewpoints expressed by any character in this novel. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised.